Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And just because it's October does not mean that Rostermania has come to a conclusion quite yet. The New York subliners have confirmed that HyDra will be re-signing for them for the upcoming season, but for how much money is the big question that remains. But also Gunless potentially revealing a substitute spot or better has been acquired, and he will still be around the CDL going forwards. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Let's keep on going. Firstly, with this here from Parasite with regard to the whole coaching situation, we saw that Huke, of course, wanted to get a coaching spot in the league somewhere. I think it was maybe back in March or something where there was all this talk about what the Los Angeles Thieves should do, right? And you guys may remember a clip when NYSL came out and said, you know, given Parasite's history and, you know, tenure and, you know, toxicity, let's just say, from previous years, that effectively NYSL didn't want to go anywhere near Parasite as a potential coach for the team at the time. In the end, of course, they bolstered their coaching staff by bringing Shane in, and Shane gets an awful lot of credit for the players on that team for really turning their roster around at the end of the season, to which point they won the World Championship. Parasite, of course, since then has been looking for an opportunity somewhere in the league, and whether that will arrive or not, well, as it stands, currently remains to be seen, and he's deciding to take his talents to the challenger scene. Interesting to me that he's going to team up with Bevels here and kind of have a package deal there, because Bevels, of course, the, well, if you look at that entire 2018 World Championship winning roster on Evil Geniuses, Eggs, aBeZy, Silly, and Assault, of course, all of those guys, plus the coach as it was at the time in Bevels, are now like, you know, not exactly nowhere to be seen. Like, aBeZy's doing the great stuff on the content side, but recently no longer part of Los Angeles. Guerrillas, Eggs, of course, we know what he's up to, and then Assault still in Challengers trying to make his way back, and Silly, not exactly sure, but I think he went to college and was going through college and stuff like this as well. And now Bevels also, despite his tenure in the league the last couple of years on Los Angeles Guerrillas, is now out of the league as well. And I guess Bevels doesn't even think he has offers for himself on another potential coaching spot in the league, despite his search and destroy prowess. I guess he thinks that, well, maybe there's no offers for me right now, and therefore him and Parasite are going to go to challengers and maybe just, you know, take a free roll effectively with a top team to try and prove themselves. Maybe they can get a coaching spot with one of the teams that has academies or whatever. But yeah, this package deal is interesting. I think from Parasite's perspective, it makes sense, right? Because I think a lot of teams are maybe understandably concerned at how well Parasite would perform in a coaching role, right? Because, look, I think Parasite can be a great coach, great mind for the game, fantastic player, of course, in his day. But if he was the head coach for a particular team in terms of, you know, actually working with the players and the kind of man-to-man management type stuff, maybe Parasite isn't best suited for that role. I think the Huke can be a great guy if he's paired up with another coach that can do that type of thing. Can him and Bevels be that too? Really knows. But I thought it's cool to see Parasite, you know, he's going to go down to challengers, prove his worth as a coach to some degree in the challenger side, work his way up the ladder, I suppose, and then get a spot, because I think we're kind of getting to that point in the CDL where just because you're a former player doesn't guarantee you a spot by any means in a coaching role or an analyst role or anything like that. I think the teams want to see a little bit more, you know, they want to see a bit more on your resume, right, on your CV, before they say, okay, yeah, Parasite will give you X amount of money per year to coach our roster. So that's certainly one update to keep your eyes on. Now, this from Minnesota Rokkr thought was kind of funny. Dream really revealed his face before subliners revealed their roster, right? 3 teams that still yet to confirm their team: the New York Subliners, the London Royal Ravens, and of course the Vegas Legion. We believe we know what the rosters are going to be, but well, until they're confirmed, all could potentially change. Now, this was the announcement the last night that comes out here from the New York Subliners, with HyDra returning to the roster. So they do a kind of classic Subliners announcement video right here. The end of this video was kind of funny, actually, just because they have HyDra loading into a Valorant game, which is, you know, Subliners like to meme themselves, of course, but that was the drama really with, you know, Crimsix, as you guys can see on this card right here, but also the previous season in general, that maybe HyDra wasn't taking things so serious towards the end of the title, like playing a fair bit of, you know, Valorant with Skies and the like, who we believe is going to be his future teammates coming up to this new season. So yes, HyDra is returning, as of course expected, but this was a crazy Rostermania off-season where HyDra could have ended up on OpTic. There was even talk that maybe he was going to go to FaZe, even though I'm pretty sure that FaZe never really engaged that as a possibility. But yeah, HyDra's going to stay with New York. Question is, I suppose, about the money side, but also Skies, Priester, and Kismet is going to be the remaining players on the team. But I mean, yeah, how much money is HyDra actually getting paid for this? I'll just share this very end of this video here where you can, well, you can hear him loading into a Valorant match.
Are you ready?
Match found.
So with the start of Rostermania, with HyDra's contract coming to an end with the subliners, he was an unrestricted free agent. He could have gone wherever he wanted and taken any offer that was on the table. And subliners, to try and keep him, were trying to pay him an absolutely mega bag. And this is to some degree understandable. They want to keep their star player, their franchise player. But at the same time, for a team like New York, like how much content does HyDra do? His English is obviously getting better, but he's, not going to quite be the star personality that some of the other franchise players on other teams are. So this was kind of interesting, the fact that Benjay Nassim was saying that HyDra had a potential deal on the table with New York to get paid about $500,000 a year, and that would have put him in the ballpark of second highest paid player in the CDL after none other than Scump right on the OpTic Texas side. So that was a big discussion at the time. Now, of course, HyDra didn't necessarily have to stay with New York. They were trying to offer him that deal to stay and to entice him to re-sign the contract. But of course, the question was there about the OpTic situation, right? Because OpTic were going to make changes, iLLeY was going to be gone, potentially Scump was going to go to the flex, HyDra was going to come in as the second SMG to Shotzzy, and there were many questions around that at the time. Was this a good idea if OpTic decided to execute on that? Just because of all the drama at the end of last season with CrimSix saying that HyDra wasn't really taking it so serious, and even HyDra kind of admitted on the flank, they're like, yeah, I wasn't really giving it my all 100% of the time. So look, I think the intention here is for New York, bring HyDra back, and let's just create a system within New York where the drama isn't going to be there anymore. No CrimSix, no kind of Duriel versus Revan and JP Krez kind of conflict that it was on the coaching perspective. Build a team that's going to be stable, no dramas, and let's see what is possible here, right? But I'm sure people still have many questions about what happened at the end of last season, whether HyDra, despite all his talent, is really the guy to be able to, win events consistently, take New York to the top, because with the money they were going to be offering him, he's certainly going to need to be, right? So I guess we'll have to see on that front as well how it develops. And of course, that was the thing, because the OpTic roster was being discussed at the time. HyDra was seemingly, understandably, very willing to leave New York to go to OpTic if that roster had gone through. But then, as I believe HyDra even found out on Twitter or something, like when OpTic confirmed they were going to stay together, Scump's talked about this as well. They talked about things behind the scenes. Okay, look, this is a bad idea. Dashy, we're going to keep you. iLLeY, we're going to keep you. Let's just run it back for next season. And HyDra, of course, despite being in the conversation to join, was then, then found out via Twitter or some other means, really, that he would not be able to join OpTic, and therefore his options were now effectively cut off in that sense. And also from the New York perspective, now that the OpTic thing fell through, and now that, the FaZe thing never happened, or even if that was a possibility, then New York really have no offers to compete for. So my understanding is that HyDra's deal, if he'd have signed it right at the start of Rostermania and was like, yes, I'm going to stay with New York, 100% guaranteed, let me just get this deal signed, he'd probably be making $500k a year for the next 3 years. That was the rumor. But after the OpTic thing fell through, then, well, there's no offers for New York to compete with, and therefore I believe they've brought that offer down to something more reasonable, let's say in the 200-300k range or something like that. So that, I believe, is what HyDra's on now. Of course, I guess we'll never really know. The contracts aren't public or anything, but that is my understanding of how things are developed, right? But if you guys are a New York fan with Skies, Priester and Kismet potentially joining, like, what do you think about that, right? I think HyDra's got, like, there's a lot of players with pressure on this season, as there always is, but it's on with HyDra to some degree, because with all the CrimSix drama going down at the end of last season, there is pressure for HyDra to prove that indeed he can be, he's a good choice for New York to build around as their franchise player for the next several years, which was their intention. Of course, we don't really know now he's re-signed what deal he's on. Is it a 250k a year deal for 3 years, because they now can sign official 3-year contracts, and maybe they have locked HyDra down for the long term, or he's worked out something else where he can leave sooner if things start to go wrong. Who knows? Definitely intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. This also then from Gunless, because big talking point the last few days, Gunless, is he going to have to go back to Canada? Is he going to be able to still compete in the Challenger side and the CDL side going forwards? And as he says here last night, today has been the first day that I've been able to breathe in over a month, man. It's all coming together. So happy right now. So, this is obviously great news. Good to see Gunless is, happy and having a good time. Now, you would imagine that this is unlikely to be unrelated to the whole CDL Challengers, his job situation effectively going into next year, because he said not that long ago now, of course, we saw on the 20th of September, we saw an update just a few days ago to say that, look, I've got 10 more days to find a sub spot, and if I don't get one, then I'm going to have to effectively retire, because, okay, maybe he can go back to, Canada and play in Challengers, but it's going to be difficult for him to go and play LAN events without a visa, without kind of funding from certain teams. And many players were like, this is ridiculous. The Gunless, after all the talent that he has, is not getting, even a starting spot, but certainly a substitute spot somewhere. Now, the thing is, of course, that teams don't have to lock in their subs this soon, but maybe by Gunless's tweet here, he's implying most certainly that he's found a spot somewhere. So where could it potentially be, if anywhere? where, of course, last season he was on the Los Angeles Guerrillas, and maybe there's an argument to say they should bring him back as a substitute there because, you know, Arcitys, Gunless, good relations there in the past. Maybe that makes a fair bit of sense. Maybe Arcitys was even like, look, we'll just bring Gunless back as a sub. It kind of makes sense just in case. The thing is, though, with LAG is because their kind of two star players that they've built around are Spart and Arcitys. Those are the two guys they signed to the 3-year deals, and Spart's role is where Gunless would step in, as of course he did last season. That was the exchange that they made. So if you are going to bring in a sub and you are the Los Angeles Guerrillas, you would think an SMG substitute is the more sensible option just in case this Huke and Neptune thing doesn't work out. So that's why I kind of wonder if he's going to go there. Of course, we did talk about OpTic, right? Just because the whole OpTic situation is still undetermined, and OpTic I think need to be probably the most aggressive in the kind of substitution market, just because they have a bit more of a risk than some other teams have in terms of that iLLeY role and what that means going forwards. So look, Gunless like in that position could be sensible. So look, we'll see how it goes, but maybe Gunless has been approached by someone or another to say, okay, yeah, we'll make it work as a substitute going forwards, and therefore he can get the visa sorted and everything along those lines. So definitely intrigued to your thoughts on that one in the comment section below. Where do you think Gunless is going to go, and what does that mean for the rest of the league? And just to mention this from Toronto, I thought was pretty interesting actually with regard to their SMG duo, because of course we expect Kismet to join HyDra yet again on the sublaners. The SMG duo on Toronto is going to be CleanX and Standy. Their KDs, certainly CleanX's KD doesn't tell the whole story, but it's rather clear with CleanX over the last couple of years, if you want to have a really successful pairing, you need some real slaying talent, right? I mean, CleanX's pure KD numbers I think were slightly better in Cold War anyway, and of course he was paired with Bance, who his numbers weren't great, but they had Cammy and Insight to really do, well, the lion's share of the slaying. This time around, I suppose they have Insight and Scrappy to potentially do that, but usually the combo is you need kind of a fast-paced SMG, an aggro SMG, and a slaying SMG, and Stanley kind of was that slaying SMG in Cold War, so I think on paper this duo can work rather nicely, but of course it's unproven to some degree, and Kismet and HyDra were incredibly good together at the end of last season. Without Crim's IGL, who knows how it's going to go? So many questions still remaining going into the upcoming season, and I thought this was pretty cool as well from Brian Stats to close out the video here with, of course, we saw the Black Ops 2 Invitational teams come up just a couple of days ago, and across all these teams, look at the number of championships, right, as he puts together here. So across Team Envoy, that of course Envoy, Cap, Crim and Aches, 71 championships, 8 world championships together, 53 chips, 4 world championships for Team Scump, 43 and 3 and 26 and 4 for Team Embos, with of course Clay having 3, Killer having 1 across those 4 guys. So yeah, I thought it's quite the tenure, let's say, of this tournament's coming up in about just under, I suppose, 2 weeks time at this point. And just to say this also, because Crone, I thought this is pretty funny from Crone, you guys may have seen that some have the edit feature enabled on their tweets nowadays, and as Crone says, testing the new edit feature. He actually says, I believe it's only available in New Zealand, Australia and Canada right now if you've got the Twitter Blue, which I guess is like Twitter Premium or something. But it's funny because if you click on this, you can see what he edited it from. So this is how, like, if you guys aren't familiar with editing tweets, I was just trying to figure this out last night. So you can see what it formerly was. If it's like a typo, you can make the change and then you can see what it used to be. And yeah, this was Crone's initial tweet last night before it then got edited. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.